Hello, I'm Steve.
And I'm Tracy.
And we are the Partners at War. Well, we put out a video that went over the core rules.
Yes.
And our thoughts on the core rules.
Yep.
Thank you everyone for watching. It actually got a lot more views than we thought that might.
Right.
And kind of inspired us to do one now on all the FAQs.
Right, they just came out.
They came out Friday, and it's a couple days later, and I spent
chance to digest them.
I spent a good share of Friday reading every one of the FAQs and highlighting the things that I thought were really important to understand going into what's going to be tournament play for us very soon.
Very soon.
And all your local friendly games, etc.
Right.
Before that, there's a couple things from the core rules that we've really talked about since we recorded that video that we're going to talk about very briefly.
Yep, right.
And then we'll jump into the FAQ. Now let's talk rally.
We were really hoping for some serious clarification on the FAQ, and it kind of got missed. So we're going to talk about it.
We'll talk about this. Well, we might as well talk about this now instead of this big, this is the elephant in the room when it came to the FAQ. Everyone who read this in the first core rules right away said, what's going to happen with pink cores?
Right.
I mean, that was...
I know I did.
Everyone did. Everyone we know thought that. Thought for sure probably the number one thing that needed to be answered in the FAQ, and it wasn't.
Right.
So there's still confusion on that. Just mention that now instead of getting that into the FAQ section, but as a part of the rules that we were hoping was answered and was not.
Right.
And that's more of an FAQ talk than the core rulebook talk, but we'll just get that out of the way now. There's some other things about the pink cores they did answer, though.
Right.
That
they
were
did.
very important.
Yes, they did.
All right, 18.1.2, contesting objectives. This was a big one we missed.
A big change.
Big change in the reading of this first rule book. As a matter of fact, I'm going to highlight this right now in yellow on here to show if a friendly unit has models within 6 inches of 2 or more objectives, you must pick one of those objectives for the models from that unit to contest.
Right. Now, before, it was each model in a unit could hold an objective. So you could have a big long string of models, and one is holding one of the objectives and one is touching the other, and you could get away with that. You can no longer get away with that.
You can no longer do that. You used to be able to have sometimes a large base model, a Lariel or something like that, for instance, that might be within 6 inches of 2 objectives.
2 different objectives.
And it was one model cannot control more than one objective. Now it is one unit cannot control more than one objective. We should have highlighted that in the first go-round because that is a major change in the game.
Right.
All right, this last one we're going to cover just can be confusing for some people.
Right.
I know it has been for me recently. I'm putting an SOB army together and trying to figure out what battalions my man crushers can fit into.
Right.
And right away I looked at Linebreaker. You look at Linebreaker, and here you have a commander,
right,
a leader with more than 10 wounds. Yeah. Obviously, a Mega Gargant fits into that. And then you've got these 2 dragon
monsters,
icons.
Right?
You look down, and they're specifically called right here, monster. Yep. That is the name of the icon. But if you look at what is included in the monster iconography, it is a behemoth that is not a leader.
Right. Not a keyword monster.
Not a keyword monster.
Right.
So your monsters that are not behemoths do not count as monsters in developing a battalion.
Right.
That's a little confusing. I wish they would not have done it that way. I wish they would have found another term for it, like behemoth.
Yes.
That would have been a better term to call that
big scary dude,
or big scary thing or whatever. I get monster as a common term, but not when it's a classic keyword in the game that people confuse it with.
Yeah.
So the man crushers actually can fit in as troops, a unit that it's not a leader, artillery, or behemoth, because your man crushers are not behemoths.
Okay.
So that's just a point I wish we would have highlighted in the last book, was that monsters under unit icons do not include monsters.
Keyword monsters.
Keyword monsters.
Right.
So that's it. There's a lot of other small things we've seen, but those are a couple things we definitely know can still be confusing. A lot of good things have been brought up on Facebook, and people are talking about them.
Good discussions.
And
yep.
I think the FAQ cleared up quite a bit of it.
Yeah.
All right, now let's look at the FAQ, and we'll start with the FAQ on the core rules. One of the things that's been confusing for many people is going to be what happens in armies that have more than one general.
Right, counts as a general.
Yes, and some of this, I hate to say, I think's even created some more confusion in this FAQ. It is a little frustrating, maybe, that the FAQ, you're going to find some spots, has created more ambiguity in some areas than I think even the core rules.
An FAQ for the FAQ.
Yes, and this, I have a note on here that I just basically say, what? Question: if I have more than one general and one is slain, but the others are still alive, do I still get to add 2 to the dice roll when I use the heroic leadership, heroic action? And this one shockingly said yes. You're still going to get to add 2 dice to the roll.
If any of your generals.
If any of your generals are there, unless you're Slaanesh. You'll see later it specifically says in the Slaanesh FAQ that if you have any generals on the table, you don't get that. So your Soulblight has a ton of generals.
Counts as, so in my Vierkros build, I have my regular general, who I chose, and then I have 2 other models that count as generals. So according to this, if either of my 2 count as generals dies, I get to add 2 to the roll.
So if I'm playing Nighthaunt, and I have Lady O and Reichenor's Condemned Procession, I have him, and I have some other small little leader that I put as the general.
Right.
I could actually rush him up, get him sacrificed, have him killed to give me +2 to my chance of getting an extra command point
for the rest of the game. Yeah.
I don't necessarily know if that's a good strategic move.
Right. Or it's just they happen to die.
That happens to die. A little question on that decision.
Except for Slaanesh.
Except for Slaanesh. We'll cover that in the Slaanesh FAQ. This one's huge. 6.1, using command abilities.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Earlier battle tomes didn't address command abilities the way later battle tomes did.
Yes.
It says you can only issue the same command ability once per phase.
Right. Yes.
Correct?
Yep.
Volturnus has that ability to issue a command ability that gives 3 units +1 attack in the next combat phase.
And it just says to use the command ability.
Does not say when.
When.
2.0 had a rule that said if it doesn't say when, it takes place during the hero phase. Okay?
Okay.
The core rules for 3.0 didn't have that in there.
All right.
Some very creative thinkers in IDK said, now wait a minute. So Volturnus could use that command ability in the hero phase, the movement phase, the shooting phase, the charge phase, the combat phase, and there's +5 to attacks for all my heals.
Yeah.
Wow. That's brilliant, for one. That is brilliant.
Diabolical.
That's diabolical as can be. They address that in this. You'll see later. That's just one example of how they really needed to clarify some of these command abilities. Another area of confusion is, does an aura that I issue as a command ability, that is a bubble around me, if I have another unit in that aura, can I issue them a command ability also?
Right.
What is issue? What's received? It doesn't say benefit. We kind of covered that in our previous video where I said I think you're going to be able to put an aura on somebody,
right,
and then they're also going to be able to be issued a command.
Issue is different than benefit.
Or receive is different from benefit.
Yes.
You can't receive a command point more than one command ability in a phase.
Right, but if there's one already existing that you happen to run into.
Or that is a buff that you happen to be into. Right. Yeah, a cloud of command ability. Both of those are covered in this kind of highlighted area. And that is, some older command abilities specify that the effect of the command ability applies to multiple units within a certain distance of the unit that is issuing the command.
Okay.
They give a buff.
Right.
Okay. An area buff.
We love buffs.
We love buffs. The model that issued the command cannot issue or receive another command that phase.
Okay.
That makes sense. But could do so in a future phase, even if the effect of the command lasts for longer than the phase in which the command was issued.
So, like in the hero phase, if you use a command ability to give yourself an aura,
the Volturnus buff.
Yes, in the combat phase, you can issue something else,
and you could double do the buffs.
Right.
Okay, that doesn't break the rules.
Right.
That's going to be answered a little later here.
All right.
The other units that benefit from the effect of the command do not count as having received the command.
All right.
And are so not prevented from receiving a different command the same phase.
Gotcha.
So that says if the Tree Lord Ancient issues his +1 save bubble.
Okay, 18 inches all the way around.
It's 12, but
gets,
yeah,
okay.
a 12-inch save bubble. And there's a unit of Dryads in there.
Right, they're getting the +1.
Another hero could issue a command on them.
To the Dryads who are already getting the benefit of a...
So they could get the +1
aura.
save, and then if somebody else put +1 attack on them.
Okay.
Like if you're doing Harvest, the one Glade that gives you a command ability for +1 attack.
Okay.
They could also, they could have +1 save and +1 attack. Now I'm assuming both of those are issued in the same phase. If they weren't, you'd be able to do that anyway. But even if they're issued in the same phase, because one's in a bubble and one is issued on them, they can actually benefit from more than one command ability.
Gotcha. Which is important because that is
huge.
Really, in this game, there's so very little stacking that gives you the opportunity to do that.
So you're allowed to do that. So Volturnus is allowed to drop all of his command points like that, right? And give +5 to attack. No. Except... Not so fast. Some older command abilities do not say when they can be used. If this is the case, the command ability can be used in the hero phase. They put that language back into the game from 2.0. So Volturnus has to issue that command in the hero phase. Therefore, he can't do it more than once.
Wah, wah,
wah, wah, wah. Even having a Volturnus right behind us and being an IDK player recently, that is the right move. That's to be consistent with all the other units and armies. And
so those creative thinkers are just going to have to go back to the drawing board.
They'll find something
I'm sure
else.
they'll come up with something
else. Let's see what's the other one in here. Here's an interesting one about command abilities also. There are some older command abilities that only affect a single unit, and sometimes they don't necessarily even say who issues them. Okay?
They're just general.
A general.
Yes, I've seen those. Yeah.
So this one, you can use the command ability at the start of your hero phase if your general's on the battlefield. If you do so, you receive 1 primordial call point. If you're going to use that, it is now issued and received by your general. It's received by your general, even though there's not a specific unit that is receiving it. So, if your general uses that to get that call point,
right,
not only can he not use another command ability, he can't receive another command ability in that phase. That's kind of big. There are some old command abilities like that.
Right. And a lot of in the Allegiance abilities that would just say if you have somebody on the battlefield.
There's a general. And I think everybody can see, well, a hero has to issue it. But no one really received it. No. The person who you're using the command ability to issue it also counts as having received that command ability and cannot receive another one. That's kind of big.
And it's going to make you have to make some key decisions.
Yes. If I want to put +1 save on my general, but I want that call point, I can't do both if they would be issued in the same phase.
Yes.
If they're issued in different phases, you're fine. Mm-hmm. Okay. There's some more in here. I would suggest reading the command ability part of the FAQ. They clear up a lot of questions about that, and they did a pretty good job with it. This one's under 12.2, piling in. What happens when a unit that's been split into 2 groups because of casualties piles in? A unit must finish any type of move as a single group, including pile-in moves.
Okay.
If this is impossible for any reason, no models in the unit can move, including a pile-in. So if you have something like 3 man crushers that come in
and pluck
models. 3 from the middle, and now your pile-in somehow won't allow you to get into cohesion, you can't pile in.
Yeah.
Very situational. But I think it could be huge in the right moment.
And then you don't have the opportunity to not be out of cohesion and you're going to lose models.
Right, absolutely, because let's say I could pile in enough to have a large share of them in cohesion, but still leave one out there out of cohesion and say, well, at the end of the turn, I'll lose one. If that's the case, you can't pile any of them in.
Right.
And if there's a split right down the middle, that means half yours are going to be gone.
Yeah. Well, you may not be able to leave the unit that half of them is gone
but
to pile them in towards the other.
This is an interesting one for especially that critical tournament play time frame. As for somebody who can pluck models out, you could use this to your advantage huge.
Yeah. Star Drake can do that.
Oh,
too.
Star Drake can do that. But a unit of 3 man crushers, that unit of 3 man crushers, that could be 3 models.
Get in my bag.
Get in my bag, on my belly. 27.1 allied units. Coalition. That's a growing
thing. A new
thing.
term for 3.0.
Yes, wait till you see Living Cities of Sigmar has it big. Chaos Books has it huge.
Yes.
This concept of coalition. Can allied or coalition units be included in a core battalion? Both allies and coalition units. Yes.
Yes.
That is something you never had an opportunity to bring in allied units into your old War Scroll battalions.
Right.
But in those core battalions, yes,
if
allied units.
If it fits that slot, it can go in there.
That's a neat clarification that I hadn't even thought of.
Yes.
15.0 Battle Shock phase. This is a major clarification.
We did discuss this one.
Yes.
Yes, in our last video.
Models removed from play as a result of their unit being split have fled. They added back in the terminology that models that have fled are treated as having been slain for rules purposes. So in other words, back to rally. In our last video we said there's a difference between fled, cohesion, and slain.
Yes.
And rally only says slain, so we're going to have to do book work to see you lost 2 due to a lack of cohesion, you lost 3 one round because they fled out of battle shock, and you lost 2 who were killed.
Okay.
So you can only rally 2 dice to get the 2 back. That's not the way this is anymore. All of those count as being slain, and how that applies to rally is you can roll a dice for all of them.
For anybody who left your table that turn.
Yes.
I may have said that wrong. It's not the number that left that turn. It's just the number that has left, correct?
Correct. It's
right.
total. It's not just that turn.
Total.
So you don't even have to do that level of book work. It's total. If you had 10 Sisters of the Watch, and later 6 of them are there, you can roll 4 dice. 4 dice if you rally to see if they're back.
It doesn't matter what turn you lost.
Doesn't matter what turn you lost them. It doesn't matter how they left. So if I have 3 man crushers in a unit and 2 of them are gone, I can roll 2 dice, and on a 6, one of them comes back. That's wrong, but I'll roll it.
I was going to say, but you're going to love doing it.
Okay, that's kind of it from the core rulebook FAQ.
Core rules, yeah.
That I think are really important for people to know.
A lot of good clarification. Still those couple questions.
A couple questions, and a couple questions brought up that I don't think existed before. So, yeah, I've got a list of things I'm still confused about that we'll talk about at the end. Now we're going to go through each battle tone.
Okay.
Some of them will be a little longer. Some of them will be really quick. We're going to start with death.
Okay.
But before that, I want to go to the Tzeentch FAQ, which we'll come back to when we do Chaos, to talk about page 107, split and split again. Because it says in 25.3 in the core book,
okay,
the sidebar says you cannot go above your maximum unit size. All right?
Okay.
And a maximum unit size for battle line would be 3 times your size because you could reinforce it twice. And your non-battle lines can only be double your maximum unit size.
Right.
So pink cores could have up to 30 in a maximum unit size.
All right.
Because they start with 10. Split and split again, you'd get above 30 in no time if you had a unit of 20 pink cores. All right? If you had a unit of 30 pink cores, you'd get over it the first time one died because you'd have 31 models.
All right.
Following?
Yes.
They addressed it, iridescent horrors, pink horrors, and blue horrors that flee cannot split and split again. But this ability allows the number of models in this unit to exceed its maximum size.
All right.
So pink horror units, when they do split and split again, can go above the maximum unit size. They can break that core rule 25.3.
All right.
Okay? Now let's go to Soulblight. Same question was asked about what's the other unit everybody's wondering about?
Oh, the zombies.
Zombies.
Yeah.
What if you had maximum zombies and they kill somebody and they turn people into zombies? There are no restrictions on the newly dead ability allowing a unit of dead walker zombies to go over their starting size. Is this intentional? Yes.
That's it. That's the whole answer. Yes.
GW, what does that answer? Was this intentional? Yes. People are reading this as, so that says zombies can go over their maximum size. They didn't say that. Was this intentional? They could have said yes, because it says in the core book they can't.
Right. So it really still leaves you hanging.
Please stop asking an ambiguous question and answer on your frequently asked questions. That's trying to clarify these issues. That question was not frequently asked that way. One guy asked that question. The question that everybody's been asking is, can zombies go above their maximum size? And they didn't answer that question in the entire Soul Blight FAQ. So pink horrors we know can. Hasn't been answered. And right now I would say zombies can't. Because the core rulebook says they can't and nothing is said that they can. So let's go through what else was done in Soul Blight. This is a good place to go over some of the things that are in all the battle tomes that we're not going to go over and over again.
Right, every single time they come up.
Big emphasis in the FAQ was to change how spells are given out from the Battle Allegiance.
At first I freaked out.
Everybody freaked out thinking, oh my god. And then if you read the core rulebook, that unique characters can't take enhancements, and the only way you get an extra spell for your unique
from your
wizards
lore.
And from your lore is from enhancements. Well, they went into the book and they added the word unique to all of the separate spell lists. To the lores. So special character, unique characters can basically act the same way they've always acted.
Right. Under the same restrictions they did before. So
yes.
If it says, so this came up and I'm a little baffled as to why. So if it says only this kind of wizard can do that and unique, I would assume that still means that unique wizard has to have the first restriction.
That was brought up in somebody saying with Skaven that now all of a sudden Thankwell can get some extra spells. And because it says unique on that spell list, but it says either Clan Scryer, including unique, or Grey Seer, including unique. You have to have the first qualification.
Right, you have to make the first restriction, yeah.
It didn't expand spell lore list. It just basically recreated what we've always been doing.
Yeah.
Hello, Steve here, and I'm doing some late night editing trying to get this out before we take a little trip. And I felt I needed to address, can unique characters take universal spells, mount traits, etc., knowing that it's the big argument that's occurring on Facebook right now. So I thought in analyzing the FAQ and the core rulebook, I would throw this into it, throw my thoughts into this a little bit. 27.3.1 clearly states, enhancements cannot be given to unique units or allied units unless noted otherwise. Tracy and I both feel that the reason they went through all the battle tomes and put the word unique on every spell lore was because that's how they actively have noted it otherwise, that all your unique characters can pick a spell from the spell lores. But they did not do that with mount traits. They did not do that on the core rulebook about universal spells. Therefore, GW not doing that means they haven't noted that otherwise. So the default is you do not get to take an enhancement for a unique unit unless they say you do. The only place we've seen that they say you can take one is on your Battle Tome spell lores. So our thoughts on this are that currently, as written, unique characters do not get to take a universal spell, no flaming weapon on Archeon, no flaming weapon on Alariel, and they also lost the ability to take a mount trait. We're not saying that's what we think it should be. We're just saying that's where we think the rules officially are reading right now. Another quick video interruption. when we originally went through this, we went through every change that I highlighted, and the video just got tremendously too long. So there are so many changes to individual war scrolls, spells, etc., that when you're building your army, go through and look at the FAQ for every potential page number. If not, you're going to miss something. When we go to the tournament, I'm going to have the FAQs on my phone, and anytime I play an opponent, I'm going to check that FAQ beforehand because they might miss something, and it could be pretty critical for the game. So I cut out a lot of these small little changes throughout this video, but that doesn't mean they're not there.
Soulblight under Endless Legions. Each destroyed unit can only be replaced once.
Yes.
But if you have 20 skellies and you replace them and they're halved to 10,
yes.
and they die, can you replace them and put in 5?
Right.
No. They can only be replaced once.
Not that I was creative thinking that one.
Not at all, with all those dire wolves you're painting. Not at all. All right, under the command traits for the Vikros dynasty, in Hunter Snare, basically the hero is able to count their wounds characteristic as the number of models towards claiming an objective.
Yes.
This clarified that if they are a monster, they don't get the extra 5 for being a monster.
Right. Yes, that makes sense.
So it just shows the importance of reading the FAQ to make sure you get all those things right. Battle traits, Cursed Abominations. Delete the second paragraph and add the following to the start of the first rules paragraph. Cursed Abominations are unique enhancements.
Ooh, that was the first time I saw that. In the core rules, it says under enhancements, some may be unique enhancements. We now have one.
And it used to be that is this the one where you take all the Terrorgeist or zombie dragons? I mean,
yes,
zombie dragons
or zombie dragons, or the Lucavi, whatever.
But it is a unique enhancement, so you're going to get one for free. But it does limit your ability to have multiple zombie dragons with multiple of these cursed mutations.
Right, but it is kind of nice that it doesn't count as a regular enhancement.
It is, but in the old game, you got an extra one of these every time you got a battalion.
Yes.
Now you get a battalion, and you have to pick what enhancements you're getting. You used to get an artifact, and now you would get one of these. You would get multiple mount traits. So if you had one battalion, you might get 3 different things.
Right. Now
and
you're
now
going to get one.
You might get one, maybe the 1-2, and you got to pick specifically what they are. So it's going to limit your options for many builds.
Yes, I agree.
Here's a big one. Archon the Black and Nagash's ability to cast the same spell over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. They took out Mystic Shield.
Yes, only Arcane Bolt can be done over and over again.
And it shows a theme.
That is brilliant.
It's brilliant, and it shows a theme that they are drastically trying to stop all the saves.
Yes. They want people to die.
They want people to die.
Oh, units to die.
Units to die. And a lot of people might miss that because that's the way it always has been.
It's always been that way.
And they didn't highlight that it went away. They just removed it from the terminology.
Words, yeah.
Page 104, command abilities. A queen amongst monsters. Who's that of your ladies here? Oh, Lucavi.
Goodbye.
This model can issue this command at the start of the hero phase. If it does so, pick one enemy model that's visible. There are a lot of command abilities in some of the books that did not have visibility. Fire Slayers
almost every one of their prayers added and visible.
So there are a lot of small changes like that throughout the books.
Yep.
And then Radagar's Court.
Oh, this was I think this was important to a lot of Soulblight players because it used to be you had to take them all as one.
Absolutely.
And then the last FAQ took out Radakar the Wolf, and you could take him separately, but the rest of the court you had to take all together. And now everybody has their own points, and you can take everybody individually.
Yes.
And that is nice.
That's pretty much it for Soulblight. Night Haunt, page 74, huge one on Kurdos. He had the ability to steal command points.
Yes. I never liked that.
I hated it. But now that command points are such an important part of the game, they addressed it. At the start of the hero phase, if your opponent receives a command point for their general being on the battlefield, just that one command point. Okay? After they receive that command point, roll a dice. On a 5+, your opponent must subtract 1 from their command points, and you receive 1 command point. It didn't say whenever you receive a command point. It just says for the one you receive for the general being on the battlefield.
So if your general is dead,
Kurdos' ability
can't
goes
steal anything. Okay.
Okay.
Not that that's a good thing, I'm just saying.
But you used to just get one command point at the beginning of every
Sure, and then they would take that one, and that was the only one you were going to get.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, if you're going to get 2 for going second, 1 for your general, Kurdos can only steal the 1 for the general. Right. And that's a big one.
Can you do that on both of them then? Both hero phases?
Assuming that you're getting both hero phases, I would say yes. Does it say at the start of your, or no, it says at the start of the hero phase.
Right, so both of them he could steal.
Yes, he could. But your ones you get for going second and the one you get just for every turn, he no longer can steal.
Yeah. Still pretty powerful.
It is. Bladegeist Revenants. I'm saying that wrong. They are now elite. And there's a couple units throughout the book that say elite. I still don't think they fully answered what does a champion mean for some of your older books.
Right.
They didn't fully answer that. And that's something, I'll have to put on my list. What does a champion mean? Bladegeist Revenants are elite. Models in this unit can issue commands to their own unit. So there's no champion. Any model in that unit can issue commands to the own unit.
Because they're all elite.
They're all elite. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of neat. And the Black Coach is now a totem.
All right. Can issue commands.
Can issue commands from the Black Coach. And I didn't see anything major in their endless spells.
All right.
So going on to OBR. Everybody was wondering, how were they going to play out?
Right. What are we going to do? They don't do command abilities and command points the way that we do.
Well, it ended up with some easy fixes. And it made sense. I think they really did a really good job with them. Generating discipline points.
Okay.
This is the OBR's version of command points.
Yes.
They just added in. If you take the first turn, you receive 1 relentless discipline points. If you take the second turn, you receive 2. Kind of simple.
Right. Yes. Very nice, easy way to put the 2 sets of rules together.
Absolutely. Now, how do they relate to battalions?
Right.
Because battalions, many of them allow you to use the new command abilities.
Yes.
Which OBR doesn't have command points. They can't use the command abilities.
Like Swift.
Swift or the redeploy or any of those type of things. In addition, when you take a battalion, you cannot use the expert, slayers, strategist, or swift battalion abilities. Because all of those are using a free use of the new command abilities.
Okay.
And they don't have command points. Instead, for each battalion in your army that is any of these battalion abilities, once per battle at the start of the battle round, you can choose to receive 1 relentless discipline point.
Okay, so explain it.
Okay. Everyone else would get a command ability, or would make a battalion that, say, gave them Swift.
Okay.
So, without looking up Swift, I think it's the...
That's the...
you
can
auto get a
auto
6
run, or you get to reroll a charge.
Something like that. So, and basically, it gives you a free command ability that you can... Specific one that you can use on that unit. Sometime in the game.
Right.
Okay? What OBR now does, since they can't use that command ability, they just get 1 time a game in the hero phase an extra relentless discipline point.
I gotcha.
The positive side on that is they can use that discipline point
on anything they
for
want.
whatever they want.
Yes, that they have access to. Yeah.
Correct. The negative side is that all the other players get to have that in hold and use it whenever they need it. OBR has to say, this turn,
I'm going to use
I'm going to spend it. Because they do lose them at the end
of each turn. Yeah.
They have the Unstoppable Advance. You can use this command ability in your movement phase when you pick a friendly OBR unit to make a normal move, run, or retreat. Add 3 inches to the unit's move characteristic.
Okay.
So the bad side is they don't get to say, I want them to run 6 inches, I'll spend a command point, and they run 6. The good side is they increase the movement by 3. Mm-hmm. So they could decide not to run and still
be able to charge.
And shoot or move and charge. So they have the distance, but they opened up the flexibility for OBR with that. And well thought out.
I think it was a very nice solution.
Petrifex Elite Unstoppable Juggernauts. This was changed rather drastically. For OBR players, you would know what their regular ability was, that they basically got to add 1 to save rolls for attacks in melee. Okay? It was changed to melee in an old FAQ. It used to be all around.
And then it was changed to melee, and now it's taken out
And
completely,
now
right?
it's taken out completely because they get to worsen the Ren characteristic of weapons that target them by 1. Katakros is a war master. He's allowed to be a general, even if he's not your chosen general.
Oh, in addition.
In addition,
okay.
they turned Katakros and Nagash and Archon the Black all into war masters. They all will count as extra generals now.
Nice.
Katakros, they changed his wound suffering chart. Once again, Archon the Black and Nagash lost Mystic Shield. Being able to do it over and over and over
Only
again.
Arcane Bolt.
OBR and Seraphim have this bonded endless spell aspect, which there's a good and a bad. When one of their wizards casts an endless spell, it is bonded. And this will be the same thing in the Seraphim book. This endless spell is bonded to that model that summoned it.
Okay.
A bonded endless spell is always controlled by the model to which it is bonded.
Right.
It can never go wild.
Right.
Okay? I think this is actually to their detriment. Because a model cannot be bonded to more than 1 endless spell at the same time and cannot attempt to summon other endless spells while it is bonded.
Right. So you're limited to 1.
And as long as it's out there,
is can only do 1 endless spell.
and you would have to dispel it, or it would have to do like the hunter one where it kills its prey and it
then
leaves.
goes away.
Or the other I guess the other army can dispel it.
Dispel it too.
But if I'm reading it right, with the other armies of their endless spells, they can summon an endless spell and then choose to summon another one, and now one of them will go wild.
Right, and just let that happen.
And let that happen. You don't get to do that with OBR, and you'll find out some of the stuff similar in Seraphim.
Right.
With their endless spells. If they pick other endless spells, of course, they're not bonded to them. This is just the ones that come for OBR only. The Nightmare Predator, the Soul Stealer Carrion, and the Bone Tithe Shrieker.
Yes.
They don't bond other endless spells they would add into their army. And the Bone Tithe Nexus, major change in how this is set up.
Yeah, yeah. Now that we can destroy terrain with monsters, it's really just kind of a sit and duck out there, right?
Well, it's also, it didn't work. The old way did not work. It was like the person who wrote it had never played in a tournament. Because it was this, you have to have a blank table, and then you set the Blown Tithe Nexus up, and then you put all the rest of the terrain around it.
Right.
When you go to tournaments, many of them, they'll say, the terrain's on the tabletop. You don't get to touch it or move it whatsoever.
Right.
They want to make it balanced. So then it got to, well, the Bone Tithe Nexus can take a piece of terrain out and put it, but it also happened before you determined which side of the table you were on. So everybody just picked one right in the middle. Which, with its abilities, you might do that. But you can't do that. Because now, after territories are determined, you can set up this faction terrain wholly within your territory and more than 3 inches from all other objectives and other terrain features. If these restrictions mean you cannot set it up because it's huge, you get to take a piece of terrain in your territory out and replace it.
Yes.
So totally different setup, but it's now not going to be in the middle of the board. It has to be in the player's territory.
And honestly, some of those battle plans, the setup territory is not really all that big.
It's not really all that big.
Yeah.
You're going to find this in some others that are going to be very similar to that,
Yeah.
that you have the same situation. So they did change how you set up many pieces of territory. All right, that's it for OBR. FEC, Flesh Eater's Court. I didn't see anything of merit in FEC. Except yes, your throne. The Cardinal Throne is now...
Charnel Throne.
Charnel Throne. This terrain feature is a defensible terrain that can be garrisoned by one hero.
Which we haven't seen very much garrisonable terrain, so this is nice.
So you put your Aberrant Ghoul King on top of them, or your Archregent on top of it, and now he's counted as garrisoning it and gets the benefits of garrisoning a terrain piece.
Right, so +1 to save, -1 to hit, I believe.
I don't remember because we never use garrisoning.
Sure.
But he'll get that benefit. Before he just sat up there.
Yeah.
But now there's a benefit for having him sit up there. That's kind of neat. That is it for Death.
Yeah.
On to Chaos. Let's start with Tzeentch.
All right.
In all of the Chaos books, you're going to have this Legions of Chaos, which is where you can actually throw in coalition units.
Okay.
And with Tzeentch, 2 in every 4 units in the Army can be coalition units from the Slaves of Darkness book.
All right.
Okay? That they also have to have the Mark of Chaos ability on them, so you can give them the keyword Tzeentch.
Tzeentch, right.
Okay? And there's a lot of units in that, Vanguard, that you could then play into the Army. 1 in every 4 units in the Army can be a coalition unit from the Beast of Chaos faction. Those units gain the Tzeentch keyword. A disciplined Tzeentch army cannot include coalition units with the Khorne or Nurgle keyword.
All right.
It does say coalition units can't be generals, but the whole coalition aspect I need to learn more about. I guess part of this video we're giving out to people is that's an area that I think if you're going to try coalition, you really need to do some more investigation with. Coalition units are not allied units, so the limitations that apply to allied units do not apply to them. This means that a coalition units can be given any of your army's enhancements as long as they have the correct keywords or the correct unit type needed to receive it.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Nice.
Flamers of Tzeentch. They got nerfed. Flamers of Tzeentch used to get +1 to hit rolls if they're within 9 inches of Exalted Flamers.
Right.
That's removed. That whole ability, it absolutely removes. Delete the Guided by Billowing Flames ability. And change the Capricious Warpfire Flame to just add +1 to hit for units that have 10 or more models. It used to also be add 2 to hit if it had 20 or more models. So if you were attacking somebody with 20 or more models near an Exalted Flamer, you had +3 to hit.
Nice.
Maximums +1, they changed it all to just +1 to hit rolls for attacks that have a unit that's targeting 10 or more models. Major nerf. So Flamers of Tzeentch are my first official nerf bat units. It's cheesy, I know. I bought that just for that. It's actually a Franklin bat. I couldn't find a nerf one, but got the nerf bat out for them. I didn't check their prices. I hope they went down in price substantially because that's a major hit on them in 3.0. We went over the split and split again. It can go beyond its maximum size. And units that flee, they clarified it, do not get to split.
Right.
So if you run away, you do not get to split. There were still, as of 2 weeks ago, major arguments on the Zinc Facebook about that. That's been over a year that book's been out and people are still arguing about it. They answered it. Fleeing units don't get to split. Fate Master Hovering Disc of Tzeentch, nerf that a little bit, add +1 or add 1 to save rolls.
Okay.
That used to be 2. Changed it from 2 to save rolls to 1 to save rolls. So a little bit of a nerf, not nerf bat worthy.
Not nerf bat worthy.
No. Here's a change you're going to find out through the entire FAQ document, which is about endless spells and moving them.
Oh, yeah.
When we had our practice game and I was playing Sylvaneth and I did the worm.
The Glade Worm, yep.
Glade Worm. Technically, how it's written, you cast the Glade Worm, you put it out 6 inches, I think, and then you get to immediately move it 8.
Right, that's what the War Scroll says.
That's what the War Scroll says. And then the new 3.0 rules came out and said you're going to move them again at the end of every hero phase.
Right.
So then at the end of the hero phase, I get to move it 8 more, so I get to put it out 6, move it 8, and then move it 8. So now I have a 22-inch threat range to do D6 mortals or whatever mortals it does. Any of the predatory endless spells like that. Well, they've changed all the predatory endless spells that you no longer move them the minute you place them.
Right.
So you don't get that double move in your first hero phase. That's a big change.
That is a big change.
But they're still going to move twice around. They're going
they're going to do in your hero phase and then the next person's hero phase.
What's the other point for the endless spells you want to highlight?
Is that several of them, not all, but several of the endless spells now disappear once they do their thing. Like the Burning Head. The Burning Head, once you move it and you do its damage, it leaves the table.
Oh, wow.
So it's only really good for your hero phase. You cast it, you move it, it does its damage, and then it comes off. So it's not there to move during the next person's hero phase. So you just have to be careful about that.
But there's things you could do then if you're not bound that you could actually already have one out. And then throw the burning head out.
True.
And not care about if one goes wild. I mean, there's some
It's
some
not going to
ways
go
that
wild
it's
because
not
it's
going to
not
go
left out there.
But will the other one, because you didn't chose that one, there's some interesting dynamics that are going to take place.
Yes, but you do have to be careful. I mean, the Fire Slayer ones, almost all of them, I think, leave
The
once
judgments that
they
they've
do
got,
their thing. Yes.
they do damage and they're out.
Yes.
Oh, interesting. Oh, because it used to be that at the end of the turn you rolled to see if they stay.
If it stays or not.
Ooh, did we check to see if that's all there yet? I haven't checked that.
Well, no, they're not, because now they leave after.
But even the
there.
corn ones, even the Hexgorger skulls, and even everything else.
Yeah.
I didn't check that. Go check the FAQ.
And it's, again, it's not all of them.
It's not all of them.
just certain ones. Like I said, I saw that on the Burning Head.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And that's about it for Zinch. Nothing else incredibly major. Let's go over Khorne. Once again, the legions for Khorne, exact same the coalition thing, except of course they don't like Slaanesh, Zinch, or wizards. So, a sorcerer, a chaos sorcerer from the Slaves to Darkness,
Yeah.
that does have Mark of Chaos. You can't bring him into a Khorne army, and that fits the lore because Khorne hates magic. So,
Although now Khorne can turn one of their people into a wizard.
that is kind of ironic.
Yes. I'll be interested to see that play out.
Yes. Especially if you have like the Hexgorger skulls near you that hurt your casting and everything else. and other than that, there was not much in Khorne. Add 1 to save rolls. The Skull Taker, I'm assuming that used to be 2 or something else, but the Skull Taker's ability got changed. And the Herald of Khorne on Bloodthrone. Delete the Bloodthrone ability, which gave out a buff.
Okay.
But instead add the totem keyword. So it's adding totems into the game, so now he can issue command points. Nice change. Put it right into 3.0 and like that. The skulls, that is a different movement category than it used to have. So if you play with the skulls, they've changed. And that's about it. The only thing on that is we're going to come across later someplace where it says our invocations, this is under Daughter of Cain, our invocations counted as prayers. And in Daughter of Cain,
I don't remember if it was Daughter of Cain.
we're going to find that later, and it says no.
Right.
And that could be a
Even
major
though
change.
We were told it was, yeah.
So those invocations down below, it's not in your book, but there's a chance that might not use your prayer slot. It's right now it would because it's not in your book, it's in a different book. But that was interesting, and we'll highlight that when it comes up later. Nurgle, they added the Legion of Chaos, except the other ones allow beasts in it. Nurgle allows 1 out of 4 can be Clan Pestilence, which makes sense.
Yes,
Absolutely makes sense. And of course, with Nurgle, you cannot allow Zinch into Nurgle because they really don't like each other. The wizards, the unique terminology got added in. Plague Bears.
Cloud of Flies.
No more -2. Or no more subtract 2. It's only subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks that target this unit with 10 models. It doesn't give you... On the positive, I put a note on here. On a positive, it used to be -1 to hit in shooting with 10 models. And -1 also in melee with 20.
Okay.
Now they just made it -1
for
everything with 10. So you could almost view that as it's a buff and a nerf, because I think it was -2.
It's just a change.
If you had 20, I think it was -2 for shooting and -1 for melee.
Shooting, yeah.
They just made it -1 for everything. Yeah, the Lord of Blights, his Plague of Flies, you don't get an extra buff if there's more than 20 models anymore. And his Vermin Shield used to be you re-rolled save rolls of 1. They took that out and gave you +1 to save.
Add 1 to save.
That's happening with just about everything you
Right.
see. Puskil Blightlords are elite models.
Okay, we talked about elite for the other.
Any models can issue a command to any other models within that. Other than that, that's it for Nurgle. That went through pretty quick.
Nice.
Nurgle's pretty quick.
And for such an old book to be that few of changes.
Yeah, you would have thought this book would have been drastically out of line.
I would have thought, yeah.
And it really wasn't. Slaves to Darkness. I was talking about playing Host of the Everchosen and getting an Archaon build. He's being painted on my table. And one thing I loved about the Host of the Everchosen is that his ability to spend a command point in the hero phase, roll a dice, look at it. I think it's on a 1, 2, or 3, the opponent would go first in the next round. On a 4, 5, or 6, he would go first on the next round, and I would know that. Okay? It said at the beginning of the next round, you can reveal it. That was the old wording.
Right. Yes.
So if I wanted to go first, and I rolled it, and I rolled a 1, 2, or 3, meaning if I reveal it, the opponent will go first. I could choose to not reveal it and re-roll off. And now I have 2 shots.
2 chances
at going
to
first.
Get what you want. Yeah.
Small wording, major change. They changed that word from you can reveal it to you must reveal it.
So if you choose to roll early and know what the outcome is going to be,
that's it.
You have to go with it.
You have to go with it.
Now, there are still an advantage.
Oh, huge advantage.
Yes. Because then you know going into your turn if you're going first or not the next turn.
And then you can mess with someone's mind by acting and laying off and make them think, oh, I get to go first. I got the back-to-back. And then go, ha-ha! There's things you could do with that. Or you could force forward and have them go.
You can't go, aha. You have to go, wah-ha.
But now, slight change. One word. Major impact.
Yeah, must.
Now, there might be some people going, I didn't know I had the option not to reveal it in the past. I've never used that. Well, you did. But now you must reveal it. Now, somebody else might say, that was FAQ'd a long time ago, Steve. And you know what? You're right. I don't know. I didn't read all these. We're just reading this FAQ.
Yeah.
So there could be some things that were changed a long time ago.
Yes.
Archon is a War Master, and this unit can be included in the Blades of Khorne, DOT, Nurgle, Slaanesh army. If it is, it's treated as a general, even if it's not the model picked to be the Army's general. They actually say that in this.
Not chosen, right?
And you can still use the Army's allegiance ability, even if this unit is not from the Army's faction. So, he has all the keywords in him.
Okay.
And you could say under that coalition thing, you're pulling him out of the Slaves to Darkness, hey, he's got Nurgle in it. He can't fit in my Tzeentch army.
Because Nurgle and Tzeentch can't be together.
Correct.
Yes.
This says he can.
Yeah, you can.
And this says he gets all the allegiance abilities. Like the re-rolling, I think it's hits of 1 for all demons in Khorne. Archaon would get that.
Yeah.
In that because he is a demon. He's a Khorne demon.
Because he has the keyword, right?
He has Khorne, he has demon, and mortal. He has all
that's what I
those
thought,
in
yeah.
this. But this says he gets those allegiance abilities. There's a lot of add 1 to save rolls instead of re-rolling saves.
Okay.
That would be under the Chaos Sorcerer Lord. The War Shrine, for the most part, stayed the same. They have a couple things they changed, like the Favor of Tzeentch. It says now you can add 1 to save rolls. I highlighted that in yellow. I'm pretty sure that used to be you can re-roll saves of 1.
Okay.
And if I got that wrong, I apologize, but there's some subtle changes that happen there. A lot of the Chaos Warriors add 1 to save rolls for attacks that target this unit. I'm guessing that was re-rolling save rolls of 1, or it was add 2 to saves. But still, that's been a change under the Chaos Warriors that I thought was of note that people should know. There are some subtle changes throughout the FAQ that result from the new ruling that you cannot run when you retreat.
Yes, you can either run or you can retreat.
You can normal move or retreat, and you can run during a normal move.
Right.
You cannot run during, so that's how you cannot run when you retreat.
Yes.
It used to be for the Furies that when they were picked to fight, they could cower, and it used to be the unit must make a normal move and must retreat. So you used to say, I'm going to move my 12 inches, and I'll make it a run and roll the dice.
Right, because I'm moving out of combat.
Because I'm moving out of combat.
Retreating.
Now, it took out the normal move and says if you do that, the unit must retreat.
Must retreat.
So you don't get the die 6 added on. And that you're going to find out through a lot of units throughout the entire FAQ. Anybody that had the ability to make a normal move out of combat, they changed it to retreat. So you can't run anymore.
Except for the Blood Knights.
Except for the Blood Knights is different. Yeah, the Blood Knight specifically says you can make a normal move.
Yeah.
So yeah, they can run. That is a normal move. Now that retreat and normal move are clearly defined separately.
2 separate things.
The Blood Knights making a normal move, as long as they don't run, they definitely can charge now at the end of that normal move. In the old 2.0, that still would have been confusing because a retreat was a normal move out of combat.
Right.
And you could not retreat and charge. Iron Golems add 1 to save rolls. That's just the new rule. That was either re-rolling save
Changed a
rolls
lot
or
of
one
the
or
same
two.
thing,
Same
yeah,
thing
over
throughout
and over.
throughout the whole book. Darkfire Demon Rift. Oh, this is a change many people are going to love. It used to be.
Many people who are not slaves to darkness.
Yes.
Yeah. Players.
Darkfire Demon Rift. Nerf bad. It used to be that you added 1 to the number of mortal wounds caused by this endless spell for each other wizard or endless spell within 12 inches.
Okay, which could be a lot.
And that's enemy wizards too.
Yeah.
They took out the wizard aspect. It's only doing +1 to the mortal wounds for other endless spells within 12 inches. Once again, I'm going to put a disclaimer. If that was changed on an FAQ a long time ago, I didn't know about it, and the old FAQs I don't think are up anymore.
Right.
So
you
I
can't
didn't
even
have them to compare.
Yeah.
But I'm just comparing these to current War Scrolls in the book. And that I saw as, wow, a major change. Skaven, page 67, Strength in Numbers. In 2.0, and this is another good thing to highlight, is a change in 3.0.
Yeah. For Skaven players.
For all players.
Okay.
It used to be you got +1 to your bravery for every 10 models in a unit. That's gone.
That doesn't exist
Doesn't
anymore.
exist anymore.
Yeah. And that saved my witches so many times.
I can't believe we didn't highlight that in the core rules.
Yeah.
There's a major, major change. And Skaven got 2 to their bravery for every 10.
Yeah.
Well, since that first rule's gone, Skaven didn't need to get 2 to their bravery anymore.
Right.
And they really changed it from when a Skaven-tied unit takes a battle shock test, subtract 1 from the roll for every 10. This is subtle. On battle shock, makes no difference. Mathematically, it's going to be the exact same. I add 1 to my bravery for every 10, or I subtract 1 from my roll.
From the roll.
It's the same thing.
Sure.
But where this is a major difference is that Skaven no longer can fight against your FEC Screams.
Right.
Who are those? The Cryptors
or the Terrorgeist.
Or the Terrorgeist.
Terrorgeist, yeah.
You used to have a big group of Skaven that would say, "Oh, you're going to scream against my bravery."
I have 30 models,
I'm adding 6 onto my bravery.
Yeah.
No longer that doesn't happen.
It doesn't
Their
change the bravery
stays the
characteristic.
same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Subtract 1 from the roll. Subtle but major change for rat players. Maybe not that subtle. It's a major change for rat players. The Liber Bubonicus. That bearer now is a priest. Basically, anything in here that allowed you to learn a spell or allowed you to chant something, it officially calls you now a wizard or a priest.
Right.
Now you get to use the generic incantations or spells.
Right. Yes.
You get to it changes everything. Plague priests add 1 to wound rolls. That was probably instead of re-rolling wound rolls of 1 on page. It used to be under filth under the plague priest that you could re-roll wound rolls for attacks made by that unit. Now you add 1 to your wound rolls.
Right. Which again is going to just speed up the game. Less re-rolls. Less re-rolls. Yeah.
Yep. Less re-rolls. That will really speed up the game.
Yes. When you're constantly re-rolling.
I was playing IDK and I could do all kinds of re-rolls. My attacks took forever.
Yeah.
And that's going to be good for the game.
I think so too.
Vermin Lord Warp Spear, Scry Orb. It used to be that you could re-roll saves when you use the Scry Orb.
Okay.
Now you add 1 to save rolls.
Okay.
Getting rid of re-rolls. If you have any units that have re-rolls,
that survived.
go check the FAC to see if go check the FAQ to see if you're still allowed to use them.
Right.
Because it's probably changed.
Yeah.
Just the other day, I thought of somebody who gave out a buff of re-rolls of 1, and I went, "Oh, that's still there." And I was like, that's fantastic.
Super excited,
It's like super exciting that you're still going to have that. Vermin Lord Warpseer, the Great Manipulator's ability, somewhat of a nerf. You used to roll a dice, and on a 3+, you receive 1 command point. On a 6, you got D3 command points.
Oh. You don't get that anymore.
You don't get that anymore.
Is that bat-worthy?
No, it's not bad.
Not bat-worthy.
But it's changed to just a 3+, 1 command point.
1 command point.
Warplock Giselles.
Oh yeah, you love those.
I love those. I want Vince to play more of those. He's so stuck on Storm Fiends, and They're pretty good.
They are good.
But Warp Lock Giselles used to have, if they don't move, they get +2 to their save. Now, unlike everybody else that they just nerfed that, they took care of Warp Lock Giselle. First, they changed that to only +1 to save, but then they changed their save characteristic from a 6+ to a 5+.
To a 5+.
But so it ends up being almost the exact same thing. But the 5+, that means that's better even when they move. Now
right,
they
can move and they still
they
have
can
5+.
move and they still have a 5+. If
Yes.
they don't move, they get +1 to save. So it actually has allowed your Warp Lock Giselles to be a little bit more mobile.
Right.
All right, on to 2 battle tomes that we don't have.
Okay.
These are the first 2 battle tomes we've encountered that we don't actually have.
Right, so
Armies
we can't go
4.
back and look and see what exactly the changes were because we don't have them to reference.
We do not have Slaanesh or Beast of Chaos. So I don't know for sure what the changes are here. So I only looked at things that sounded as if they might be 3.0 changes.
Okay.
And Slaanesh players might at least want to look into further. Battle traits, Figurehead of the Dark Prince. You receive the +2 modifier to the heroic leadership, heroic action, only if all of the generals have been slain.
Which is contradicting to that first thing that we read in
Yes.
the very beginning.
That says you get the +2 as long as you have one
If
general.
any general has been slain.
Yes,
If any, except for Slaanesh.
except for Slaanesh. I've heard that there's a Slaanesh rage about some of the changes with them. And, of course you're going, everybody's upset. But, wow, that is almost going, you guys were broken for so long, we're just going to stick it to you. I mean, I don't get that. Now, maybe there's a reason that it fits. But when I read that, I went, why did they get soloed out as the one who don't get that when everyone else gets it? Other than that, on Shalaxi Hellbane, you can add +1 to hit rolls for attacks made by the caster that target a hero, and add 1 to save rolls for attacks made by heroes. That being in there as a change, I'm wondering if that used to be re-rolling of 1s.
Yeah.
Might want to look into that. I don't know that for sure. Same one with, on page 121, the Shard Speaker. 1 to save rolls. Was that re-rolling 1s? Possibly could have been. And the same thing on page 122 with the Myrmidesh Painbringer.
Myrmidesh.
That's about all that I saw in Slaanesh that I could be able to help you with.
Right.
Beasts is our next one that we do not have the battle tome for. And I don't know if I saw anything.
That's a very short...
It's a very short FAQ. I didn't see anything in Beasts. And the last official Chaos book is The Wrath of the Everchosen. And I really saw nothing in there at all. That was a major 3.0 change.
Okay.
So that is it for Chaos.
Chaos. Done. It's a wrap.
All right, Destruction. Sons of Behemoth.
They're a big deal.
Yeah.
I crack myself up.
And that's good. That's good. I'm really interested in this because I'm putting one together, and I've been at a total loss of what to play with 3.0.
That is an understatement.
How can you have 22 armies and you have no clue what to play? Or 20 whatever armies. Putting the Sylvaneth back together because getting the boys back together, getting the band back together, getting the band back together, and they look good. They look good. They're not amazing, but they're gonna look fun. But Archaon and Slaves of Darkness, and now SOB, and it's just fun. One of the reasons they're going to be so fun, and one of the reasons why I started painting them last night, was reading the new General's Handbook. This is not a General's Handbook show, but if you're an SOB player, go look at the pitch battle profiles, the last page, second last page, Endless Spells the last page, and it shows you that Mega Gargants are both leaders and battle line. Huge. I use that word all the time. I watch the last video. I use huge all the time.
Huge.
Huge. It's huge. But you now can take your 6 Man Crushers in a unit of 3 and a unit of 3. You couldn't do it in the past because it's only 2 battle line.
Right.
But now your 2 bigs are
also battle
line. You can take 4 bigs. You hit your 3 battle line, and that's it. Four models on the table. I don't know if that's going to be any good at all. It'd be fun. That's kind of like Archaon and 12 Vanguard. I don't know if they'll win, but it would be fun. But there's a lot more flexibility now with Sons of Behemoth. Some of the rules, I brought up a couple rules in here that they did not bring up in the FAQ.
Okay.
Okay. Taker Tribe. Here's the ability for Taker Tribe. More stuff for me collection.
Okay.
Each time an enemy model with an artifact of power is slain, you can roll for a triumph on the triumph table.
Oh.
There is no more triumph table.
Right. There are 3 triumphs
There are
that you
3
can
triumphs,
pick
so
from. So
maybe
does that
you
mean
could
you
do
get
that.
to pick?
Or do you get to pick? It's that type of thing that I think somebody in GW will go, oh, we needed to address how we missed that. It's understandable, but that's an area has to be addressed in the FAQ, and I'm not going to make the Kraken Eater the general until that's answered. Wasn't going to make him the general anyway. Not with the other option. But that is kind of huge. That is,
absolutely.
There's some things like that throughout if that's in that book, there's still some things throughout the rest of the books. And I've got a list of other things that are still confusing that's on it. But going down and looking at the actual SOB, all the Longshanks ability have been changed. That's their ability to walk over models.
Yes.
Because they're big and tall.
Yes.
For the megas. This is for the megas. When the model makes a move, it can ignore models, endless spells, invocations, and terrain features that are the less than 4 inches tall.
Okay.
Little confusing because you're allowed to walk through now invocations and endless spells. You just can't land on them. But some of them are impassable. This allows them to walk over those also. I know the Fire Slayers have one. We just saw the Nahulls. What?
I have a question.
I might have an answer.
So how does this play out? Like my Lady Olander, I put her on a pillar. So now she's taller than 4 inches, but her normal model wouldn't be over 4 inches. Does that count?
No, I would. You'd have to ask a local game. You can ask each other. You know, you're playing a friendly game. Tournament organizer. I think there's a ruling in there someplace that you still kind of have to go with
what it was normally.
With what it was normally.
Okay.
I but a TO might rule differently. But that's a very good question.
Because there are a lot of people who build their models up onto cool bases and
we
things
saw
like
a battle report the other day on YouTube with an Archeon that was on top of a tower. That model was. You can't. My screen's not gonna.
It was huge.
It was ginormous.
Ginormous, gargantuous.
It was gargantuous. It was titanic. It was so. Of course, he's more than 4 inches anyway. But what's line of sight for him with that situation? So it's interesting. The Gatebreaker. This is the guy that can destroy terrain.
Yes.
Since you have a monstrous ability that allows you to destroy terrain for all monsters.
Did it kind of negate it?
Did it negate it, or did it make it that you can do it twice?
Ooh.
Because he could do it for his own ability.
Good point.
And then he could use it for the monstrous ability? No.
No, the answer is no.
The answer is no. They changed that portion of it too. In addition, add 1 to the roll when you carry out a smash to rubble monstrous rampage ability.
Okay, so you can still do it. It's just you get a little bit of an advantage because they took away the fact that you were uniquely able to do it. It
is, but I think it really nerfed it because it made all monsters able to do it, this thing he could do rarely. Right. And now he has to use that monstrous ability instead of another ability, and he gets +1 to the roll.
Right.
It
is kind of funny because you can have like a tiny monster.
I can have the what's that Sphinx? You know, the Mind Stealer Sphinx, and she can walk up and say, "I'm going to get rid of that whole terrain piece." Almost as good as he can.
Right. It's only a +1 difference, yeah.
Now the Man Crushers in units of 3 still have their ability to do it separately.
Okay.
You know, they
so
have to
it's
roll
not
it.
Per unit, it's by per model.
And they have to roll a dice, and they get +1 for every model in the unit. And if it's a 7+, so if you have 3 models, you need a 4. They destroy terrain. If you have 2 units of 3 of them, and him, you could destroy, or any other monster, you could destroy 3 pieces of terrain in 1 turn. But it really does nerf this one unique thing for him. A little bit, yeah. It does. Now, what doesn't nerf him is the fact that I plan on giving him the unique, or the artifact, that he can be a wizard. And then I plan on giving him the burning
the flaming weapon.
The flaming weapon. So his flail is going to be doing +1 damage as he's flaming that flaming brick into everything. Yeah, I think that's about it for SOB.
Oh, well, that was fast.
That was actually a lot of talk
That was
about
not
it, too.
huge.
That was not huge. Let's talk about the Oryx, and I honestly...
I don't know how much time we want to spend on it since they're getting a brand new book.
They're getting a brand new book, and I think some of this stuff was actually FAQ'd in the past that is on here, and it was 1 page. So I really don't think there's anything in there that's necessarily
Right.
changed.
Because your book is going to be error-free when you get your new one.
Error-free and unambiguous. Gloomspite!
Oh, yay.
Let's look at these. You get to the page numbers I'm going through here, even though, ironically, it's 5 pages, but I didn't necessarily see a whole lot that was really drastically different. You know these guys much better than me.
Scragrat.
Scragrats, delete the command abilities header. Oh, this is neat.
Okay.
This used to be a command ability for him, and it's no longer a command ability.
It's just an ability?
It's just an ability. He does
Nice.
not have to spend a command point. His own old command ability, the Loon King's Entreaty, once per battle, if this unit is your general and on the battlefield, before you roll the dice to determine how far the bad moon moves that battle round, you can choose for the bad moon to either not move that battle round or to make 1 move or 2 moves that battle round. Do not roll the dice.
And you know what? That was powerful as a command ability, so much nicer that you don't have to spend the point.
You don't have to spend the point.
Yes.
And what that does is, since it was a given that he was going to do that every turn.
Not once a game.
Once per battle.
Yes.
Okay, once per battle. Since that was a given, he was going to do it once a game.
Uh-huh.
If it's a command ability, that means that turn, he can't issue any other command abilities.
Right.
But now that it's not a command ability, it's just an ability, it doesn't stop him from using other. It's not about the command point, it's about him allowing
It is kind of.
Okay.
Because this used to happen before the battle round. So it didn't happen in a phase. So there was confusion as to, well, when can he move it?
And if you're losing all your command points at the end of the round,
yes,
and you haven't
didn't
gained
have
them yet.
Yes, so it was in between. So there was this weirdness. So that's what they fixed.
You just opened up my mind to how many other abilities were out there that are in that
In between time.
you know that lost time in between last battle round and you gain new hero points
Yes.
or command points that now you wouldn't have them.
Right. Well, and I don't know how many there were, but I do know that this was a huge debate online. What did they really mean by that? And they fixed it, which is nice.
They
Yes.
just took it away from being a
It's
command
not a
ability.
command ability, it's just something
a
they can
general
do.
ability. Yes. Hallucinogenic fungus brews.
Okay. You gotta love the Gloomspite.
This is on multiple people. So they all have these fungus brews. It used to be in the first battle round, add 2 to save rolls for attacks that target this model. In the second battle round, add 1 to save rolls.
Okay.
And the 2 to save rolls, unless you're fighting Rend, mean nothing anymore. Mm-hmm. So now it is in the first battle round, they get a 5+ ward save.
Okay.
In the second battle round, they get a 6+ ward save.
Oh, all right.
So
Nice.
totally different change, trying to still give them something, understanding they changed the rules on saves so drastically. Backstabbing Mob, which is under Stabas, and under Shootas. So this is under both the Stabas and the Shootas. They changed it, and it's a little bit for the better, but a lot for the worse.
Okay.
It used to be you got +1 to wound rolls for attacks if you had 15 or more models. And you had 2 to the wound rolls for attacks if they had 30 or more models.
All right.
Well, they're trying to limit the sizes.
Right.
So they just changed it, add 1 to wound rolls if you have 10.
Okay.
So they made it easier to hit the +1 to wound roll threshold.
They just didn't get the bonus for the
But they
ginormous mob.
removed the 2 to wound roll threshold.
Okay.
I like it.
So instead of being a backstabbing mob, now they're just a backstabbing group.
That's it. They're a group.
Mob anymore.
Gathering. Backstabbing, gathering. Collection. Let's go back over that. Mork's Mighty Mushroom. It used to be after this model is set up and at the start of each battle round.
Oh, instead of shooting
And
phase.
now it's at the start of the shooting phase. And it's not yours.
both shooting
The
phases.
shooting
Yeah.
phase. Oh, that just made that a more powerful.
I think so.
I think
yeah.
the damage is all exactly the same, But when it's going off is drastically
Instead
different.
of once per turn, it's twice
per turn.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
That for those of you who play Gits, that might be a nice spell to have.
I don't know what the points went to, but yeah.
Yeah, points might have changed drastically. Like the tree for the Sylvaneth.
The skull root.
The skull root. Now that you're going to have woods all over the place, that became a much nicer endless spell. And it jumped in price substantially. That's about it. The shrine changed drastically. If you're playing them, read the shrine. So yeah, if read your shrine, it could. I think it changed again, kind of like the trees changed for Sylvaneth again. And I didn't know it well enough to highlight all the changes. That is it. Oh no, ogres. Once again, we do not have the ogre book. We don't play ogres.
We've actually, went to buy it, and
we went to buy it. Nobody had it.
Stores.
I'm glad we didn't buy it because we would have also had a full ogre army by now, and that would have been more gray plastic sitting in our room.
Oh my gosh.
Not major changes that I saw in here that stuck out. It's only a 1 page, or it is a 2 page. Oh, never mind. Man-eaters are now elite.
Okay, which we've talked about.
That's a big change with them. And the maw pot is impassable. I saw that. I wouldn't know if there was any other major changes, but that's all that stuck out to me. Might be 3.0 changes. That's destruction. We only have order left.
Nice.
Order.
Order.
Why don't we just jump right into Sylvaneth?
Okay. Sounds good to me.
A lot of people originally thought Sylvaneth was kind of nerfed over again and over again.
Yes, the general consensus.
And then some people started playing them in 3.0.
Putting some things
and
together.
Realized maybe GW was onto something. One of the reasons they thought they were nerfed right away is the Awakened Wildwood change, which, yes, it confuses many of us how it is that you just put out Awakened Wildwood in a Broken Realms book a month and a half to 2 months ago, and you already had another Awakened Wildwood scroll that was coming out.
Yeah.
And that got a little, what's going on? And you gave us line of sight for Sylvaneth, but not for others.
The bows, yeah.
Anybody.
Yes.
But really for the bows, it was going to be a big advantage. 30-inch bows, I can shoot out and you can't hit me.
Yeah.
I mean, we were all excited, and then you took that away. It's like a nice tease. But the change to the Awakened Wildwood, that you have to put out 3 pieces. Yeah. You can put them as one group of 3, which many times never fit on a tabletop.
Fit, right.
But now you can put them out as one group of 3, or 3 separate groups of 1.
Yes. Which might make you think, oh, well, why would I want to do that?
Oh my gosh, the ability to still use our War Scroll abilities to summon on, to jump around, to Dryads get plus saves if they're
within
negative
6
to
inches?
hit, negative to hit if they're within 6 inches. I think +1 save if they're, or maybe it's the other way around. If they have more than 10, they're within woods, they get +1 save and -1 to hit. I always forget which one's which. But Durthu getting +2 attacks if he's close to a wood.
Yep.
The Vengeful Skull Root Endless Spell doing D6 if you're within Awakened Wildwood. They really are going to have the opportunity to kind of control the tabletop now. And that's exciting.
Predator's Domain, you're going to own so much of the board.
You can own so many. That's Predator's Domains in the General's Handbook, one of your
grand strategies.
The ability to control more terrain.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of positive that's going on. We'll go through it. This is one, yes, I do know in more than I know some of the other armies. Page 65. Here's one, though, that can be a positive, navigate realm routes, and that is the ability to take one unit and walk between trees.
Okay.
That is a positive with this multiple woods.
Right, you have them all over.
Here's how they nerfed it. And they nerfed it by, they took that out of the battle traits table. It's crossed out. It's deleted from the battle traits table.
Okay.
And it's put on the war scroll for the trees.
Of the tree. Oh, I see where you're going with this.
So if a monster destroys a tree.
Yes, turns it to rubble.
The tree loses everything on its war scroll. If it stayed in the battle trait, even if you destroyed it as a monster,
yes,
the Sylvaneth used to be able to still walk to it because it was in the battle trait table, not on the war scroll. They took it out of the battle trait table, put it on the war scroll of that terrain piece, so therefore, when it is smashed to rubble, Sylvaneth can no longer walk to it.
Okay, well, I am going to say this, though. You're going to have so many trees everywhere. Not all of them are going to get smashed to rubble. I think you're going to be all right.
You get a free one to begin with, so that could be 3 separate
Separate
pieces.
ones, yep.
If you take a Tree Lord Ancient, he gets to drop 1, which could be 3 separate pieces.
Yep.
You take a War Song Revenant with +1 to cast, or your Gnarl Root with 3d6 on somebody. You're going to get a third one. You could realistically have 9 separate one-piece trees on the tabletop turn 1.
Yes.
Easily.
Yeah.
And with the new behind cover
Yes.
rule in 3.0, that means that Sylvaneth then can be behind. We have a cat destroying some of my kids' tanks. So it does happen. We've been asked sometimes, how do your cats stay away from all your models?
Yeah,
Sometimes they don't. But now that with the new behind cover rules, your Sylvaneth can be behind all those, and when they shoot in, they're going to get cover.
Okay.
So, and then if the Tree Lord Ancient uses his command ability, you can get another plus to save, which of course, you can only get +1 save maximum, but you can fight off rend. No problem. So they're going to be durable. But that is something to learn. They took it out of the battle traits and put it onto the war scrolls of trees. Once again, it's about wizards and who can do everything. That's not a major thing. The Tree Lord Ancient, his command ability used to be a reroll save rolls on one bubble. Now it's a +1 to save bubble.
Which is huge.
The reroll was better. The reroll a save, because you could be in cover and get +1 save, and then I could reroll ones also. Now those things cross over.
True, you can't double up that way.
You can't double up that way.
And I get that, but being the fact that you can only Mystic Shield 1 unit, and then you can only give +1 save to limited, it's amazing that a huge chunk of your army is...
The Arch Revenant has Crescent Shield. It used to be reroll saves of 1, I think. It's just add 1 to save rolls now.
Okay.
Kurnoth Hunters, yes, we talked about it already. Their nerf from the Kurnoth Hunters used to be able to, when they went Tanglethorn Thicket, they used to be able to reroll all saves. Now it's just add 1 to save roll.
Yeah.
The Awakened Wildwood, we've talked about that, I think, in detail. Cities of Sigmar. While we highlighted in SOB, there was one of the big, huge traits that they missed.
Right.
This was one they got right away. I mean, they just realized that the Cities of Sigmar wizard and that whole thing about endless spells from realms and
yeah, because they got an extra bonus,
bonus
if they were at
realms
in
are gone.
A certain realm. Yes.
Realms are gone, so that was useless. Boy, they just said that
Took
they
care
get
of it.
+1 to casting rolls for Cities of Sigmar wizards attempting to cast a summoning spell and an endless spell war scroll.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So they took care of us without,
not the exact same buff as it used to be, a
Right.
different one, and actually a very nice one.
Yeah,
+1 to casting
anytime
endless
you're
spells.
going to have something more likely to
Yep.
happen, that's good.
Warriors of the Realms, page 63. I just wanted to highlight that because it's officially the death of malign sorcery. Because it just says delete it. Just the whole passage on malign sorcery is gone. Coalitions, they have separate coalitions that 1 and 4 units in the army of a coalition unit from the Stormcast Eternals factions.
Yes.
They're coalition
Any city except for Harkonnen can take 1 and 4 as a Cities of Sigmar.
They're traitors. That's why.
Well, they're not traitors. They got taken over by Marathi, but okay.
But I do find it funny. Coalition units are ignored when determining if the units in the army are from a single faction. And coalition units cannot be generals, with the exception of Aventus Firestrike in the Hammerhall army.
Right, because he does special things in there if he's the
Yes,
general.
I just find that neat. And I want to get that model put together and done and get them on the table. It's a great model. A lot about coalition stuff that goes along with them. Free Guild Guard, 2 changes in the Free Guild Guard. Their masked ranks rule used to add +1 to hit rolls for attacks made by this unit if it has 10 or more models.
Okay.
That stays. And add 2 to hit rolls instead of 1 if it has 20 or more models. Delete that second
one
one.
went away.
And that's very common. We see that in a lot of units.
That took out a lot of them, yeah.
Its Wall of Spears rule was add +1 to hit rolls for attacks made with Free Guild Spears that target an enemy unit that made a charge the same turn. Well, that would double dip. You can't get more than +1 to hit, so you're +1 to hit with more than 10 and +1 to hit if they charged. They changed that to add 1 to wound rolls if they charged. I actually like that better.
Yeah, I think
Instead
that
of,
works.
because they're already hitting on 4s and they're wounding with those spears on 4s. So now they're at 3-3.
Nice.
Instead of 2-4, which it could have been in the old one.
Yeah.
Now, Free Guild handgunners.
Okay.
And this exact same discussion could happen on the same page. You see it with Sisters of the Watch.
Right.
And that is, both of those had their overwatch in the old game, which is when I charged in, if I got within 3 inches on the at the end of the charge phase, they got to shoot.
Right.
How does that play with Unleash Hell? Can I have them shoot twice?
Well, that was what I had hoped for.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people hope for. They did almost the same thing they did with the Gate Crusher for the SOB, that he already had an ability they were replacing with an ability, so they just made it easier to use that generic ability.
Yeah.
They did the same thing. Now it is, for both of them, if an enemy unit finishes a charge move within 3 inches of this unit can receive the Unleash Hell command without the command being issued and without a command point being spent. All right. So if I have 2 units of Sisters of the Watch, or Free Guild handgunners, they're both charged by different units.
Okay.
Because once one charged in, you can't do Unleash Hell or your ability if you're already in combat.
Right.
Okay. So
right.
2 separate units being charged by 2 separate units. Can both of them use this? The order isn't issued and without a command point being spent. Okay. I say no. You cannot use it on both of them. Because it does say very clearly at the last line in 6.0 command points, in addition, you cannot use the same command ability more than once in the same phase.
Right.
Even
and
for different
technically,
units.
They would both be using Unleash Hell.
You're using Unleash Hell.
Yes.
By it saying the command's not issued, it means that you're not taking away a hero's ability to issue another command.
Something else.
That's what that means. Now, it still says, or they did receive it.
Right.
It doesn't say that the command was not received. It says that the command wasn't issued. Therefore, even if you could do it again, you couldn't do it again on that unit because the same unit can't receive a command ability more than once a phase.
Well, they wouldn't be able to do it twice, but what you're saying
But
is
if there's
that
another command ability in the charge phase, you can't throw it on the Sisters because they did receive it.
Yes.
It actually says in that this unit can receive the Unleash Hell command.
Without the command being issued.
Without the command being issued and without a command point being spent.
So just saving a hero from having to issue it.
And saving a command point.
Yes.
But in that scenario where you have 2 of those units and they're both charged, only one of those units is going to be able to use the Overwatch or the Unleash Hell. Therefore, for both of those, it's kind of a nerf bat. Because having 2 units of Sisters of the Watch and them both being able to issue Overwatch, which they used to be able to do.
They would have been able to do, yes.
You can't do that any longer.
Yeah, you can't do it.
So that's a nerf.
It is.
That is a nerf. Gyrocopter, before attacking with a steam gun, pick one enemy unit that is within range of the attacking model's steam gun. This is a subtle change, but it's huge.
Okay.
The range of the steam gun is 8 inches.
All right.
It used to say you pick an enemy unit within 8 inches. Seems like the same thing, right?
Okay.
What if you can somehow, with some ability, increase the range of the steam gun?
Oh, then you're stuck at 8 inches and you can't.
Correct.
Make it. Okay.
The ability was stuck to 8 inches, even though you might be able to increase the range of it. And
Gotcha.
I don't play this, but I think there are some other abilities you can do with heroes and stuff to increase the range of the weapons.
And then.
And this is something that might have been in the FAQ a long time ago. But when I'm reading and comparing the two, I went, oh, that's a subtle difference, but a big difference. There are probably some gyrocopters playing saying, Steve, that was done like 2 years ago. Maybe it was the case. If so, I'm sorry. Black Dragon, they did change his wounds suffered table. Same thing with the Scourge Runner Chariots. If the unit has 3 or more models, one of them can be a High Beastmaster. And that is obviously a battle line unit.
Can be.
Can be a battle line unit because so you can get 3 models into it. And that is it for cities. We were shocked at how big the cities book is.
Yes.
And how really short the FAQ was for cities. Daughters of Cain. Let's talk about another incredibly confusing answer.
An inconsistency.
Which leads to confusion
Yes.
and ambiguity.
Okay.
Question. Is an invocation of Cain a prayer? Answer. No.
Even though we were told in the last FAQ it was, and then when they changed it to when you only got one prayer, it took your prayer to do the invocation. So I have no idea where that came from.
So the Heart of Fury is not a spell.
Right, it's an
The
invocation.
Heart of Fury is an invocation that's done by a priestess, not by a wizard.
Right.
And in the last one we were told that took one of your prayers.
Yes. It was considered, because originally it wasn't. And I say this, I'm only going back for the sake of going forward, and that was when I was playing before the last FAQ, I would get to do one prayer off my war scroll, one prayer from my lore, and get to do an invocation from one priest.
Same as Korn used to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Then they changed it, and they said you can only do one prayer. But an invocation wasn't a prayer, so you could do two.
And then they changed the
And
invocation
then they changed it
to a prayer.
to the fact that it was a prayer, and now it's not.
But what does this say about Korn and doing their judgments? What does this say about Fire Slayers and doing their whatever their
Invocations,
whatever they're called? I read that and I was baffled.
Completely
And
confusing.
you were upstairs painting and I was downstairs and I went, Tracy! And I was like, read this. And once again, maybe it's been in that way for a long time, but I'm completely confused right now. That's on the list.
It's actually nice if it's not considered a prayer, because then you can do it on
Absolutely.
top of your prayer, which is good. I would never say that it shouldn't say that, but at one point it said that you couldn't.
Blood rights, unquenchable fervor. Change the rule to worsen the Ren characteristic of weapons that target this unit by 1 to a minimum of blank. This is under the battle traits, under blood rights. It used to be you could reroll save rolls of 1.
Ooh.
And that was in the 5th battle round.
Or if you're Hagnar, 4th battle round.
4th battle round, you could reroll saves of 1. That's gone. It is now you worsen the Ren characteristic of this target unit by 1. Now, and most time if you're not Hagnar, tournament games don't go to the 5th round anyway, so most people, playing IDK, it was like, what happens all the way in the 5th turn? I have no clue. Yeah. Never been there before. But but that was huge.
That is kind of a big deal.
Last thing we need to talk about with the Daughter Cain is this nice, wonderful, frustrating Heart Fist.
Heart of Fury.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you furious.
Hate this thing. Last 2 tournaments playing IDK, I had 2 snake builds that I went up against that were throwing this thing out there and reducing the damage of every attack to 1 against snakes. By 1.
Yes.
When you're at 2 with your IDK, Morsar Guard, -2 Ren, hitting 2 damage on the charge. Oh, it's only 1 damage. On snakes with 2 wounds, it just, that's the reason both those games were close as can be. 1-1, lost 1. And they made it stronger. Tremendously stronger, in my opinion. And they're saying now it's not a prayer, so it doesn't take a prayer slot.
Right.
At the start of the combat phase, if this invocation is on the battlefield, you roll a dice.
Right.
It used to be you just threw it out there and it just had its effect.
Right.
And then at the end of the turn, you rolled to see if it stayed.
Right. Yep.
No longer. It stays out there. And at the start of the combat phase, each combat phase, you roll a dice. On a 1 to 5, it acts like it used to. It just reduces 1 damage in that 12-inch bubble.
Yes.
If you roll a 6, not only does it reduce damage by 1 in the 12-inch bubble, it gives +1 attack to all the Daughters of Cain within that 12-inch bubble.
Wholly within, yep.
This near, who are the Speary Snakes?
The sisters, Blood Sisters.
Blood Sisters. This near Blood Sisters turns them into one of the most deadly units, in my opinion.
Blenders
in the entire game. With their ability to dish out mortals at the end of the combat phase, and their damage themselves. If they get ward saves and they get buffs, they're actually more resilient than people think. Mm-hmm. Reduce the damage by 1. If you roll a 6, they get the +1 attack.
To their attacks, yep.
And then it disappears at the end of the combat phase. But it only, if you read this, it only disappears if you roll a 6. If you roll the 1 to 5, it reduces the damage and it stays. And you're not going to roll for it at the end of the turn.
Yes.
It's just going to stay there.
Yes.
And it went down in points?
Yes. Yes.
Oh my gosh. Plan on seeing a lot of snakes near heart fists. And
furious people.
And it's for those of us that are building armies without priests, that's scary.
Yeah.
That is going to make, in the meta world, my prediction is priests absolutely worth it because you're going to see so many of those. You're going to see tons of those.
I agree.
That is scary. Oof. Move on to Fire Slayers. Fire Slayers, you will see almost all their prayers have this visible.
Because it didn't
before.
And my son readily admitted he abused that.
Absolutely. So their prayers, they have to be visible. There's some other minor changes that add 1 to rune rolls instead of re-rolling. And then some language changes. But other than that, no major changes that I saw in Fire Slayers.
There were a lot of just small tweaks.
Small changes. George did say that their invocations, once they damage, they leave. Right here, say, if the commanding player rolls 4 or more unmodified 6s after the more wounds have been allocated to that unit, it's removed. But it could still do damage and stay.
Yes.
It just has a wound threshold. There's some like wound criteria that cause it to leave. But it doesn't get rolled to leave at the end of every turn like it used to in the past.
Right.
Which that's a positive.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Which I think makes them potentially more scary. Model the firewall.
He
models,
said it used to block line of sight.
It used to block line of sight, and it no longer does.
It doesn't do line of sight anymore.
It's just a movement barrier. Only magma dross, or if you can fly, can move over it. I would say it's not 4 inches, so Mega Gargants could too. That's it. No major changes other than that. That we see. The pizza oven?
Yeah, it got changed in its setup. It no longer has to be within 6 inches.
Setup. After territories are determined, you can set up this faction terrain feature wholly within your territory and more than 3 inches away. If both players can set up faction terrain, so there's no limitation on it being near
it had to be a priest.
Near that priest.
Yes.
Okay. So that's it. Fire Slayer's pretty straightforward, except all their prayers got to be visible and a couple wound reroll tweaks. IDK. High Tide just got given the official strike first effect. That just keeps it in line because there was a confusion of is that strike first. Cloud of Midnight got nerfed back big time. Cloud of Midnight used to be an artifact you could put on a hero, and you could have that hero move up front in front of everybody, like in a Killing King. And he could pop the Cloud of Midnight in the shooting phase. And the old rule was, IDK has the rule, you have to target the closest IDK model.
Right, yes.
You can't be targeted when you pop Cloud of Midnight in the shooting phase. Therefore, it made your entire army ineligible to be shot. For 1 turn, 1 time a game. They nerfed this. In the phase in which the bearer releases the Cloud of Midnight, they are ignored when determining which is the closest Idnith Deepkin model for the purposes of the Forgotten Nightmares battle trait.
So if he's out front, and then he's vulnerable for other things if he's out front. So,
but if he goes out front, pops the Cloud of Midnight, he can't be shot. But that doesn't stop them from shooting models behind him anymore. So there was a Cloud of Midnight, and it was kind of broken, that no longer exists. They took care of that.
You can shoot behind him?
In the phase in which the bearer releases the Cloud of Midnight, they are ignored when determining which is the closest Idnith Deepkin model.
Oh, so it's not saying you just can't see them.
It's saying if you're going to determine which is the closest Idnith Deepkin model, you ignore him. And in the past, it was even in the FAQ, since he can't be shot at, can you target units behind him? And the old FAQ said no.
Right, that's what I was thinking. I'm
and
like, you
Cloud
put him in
Midnight,
there,
nope.
You can't shoot him, and now you can't shoot anybody behind him.
That's gone. That's the way it used to be. It's a major change that if you're going to use Cloud of Midnight now, you're protecting that hero from being shot for 1 turn, but you can shoot the units behind
Who's
it.
now
That's the way
out
I'm
front
reading it.
hanging there waiting to be charged
Which,
anyway, but yeah.
which, if it's your turn, well, that's in their shooting phase, you're right.
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody's taking the Cloud of Midnight anymore. And that was a very common, very, very common taken. It gave a list of mounts, which there were never list of mounts. That's not a big thing.
Although, no, that is kind of a big thing, because there was a big debate on whether Volturnus could take a mount trait because he was a named character.
Correct.
And now it's saying absolutely he can.
But he can't anymore. Because mount traits, unique characters cannot take enhancements. And a mount trait is an enhancement. That's my reading of this. Is that no unique characters anymore. It used to say in 2.0, unique characters could not take command traits or could not take artifacts.
Okay.
And that's how everybody said, well, it doesn't say they can't take mount traits. But now it says they can't take any of those enhancements.
Right, which is why they added unique to the spell lore.
To the spell lore to say you can here.
So he has a mount, but he can't take mount.
I don't read it, and we could be wrong on this, but I don't read it as unique characters can take mount traits anymore.
Yikes.
That's the way I'm reading it.
I don't feel too bad because I've never played an army that actually got mount traits. So.
Yes. Now, here for your IDK players is a buff, and in my opinion, a huge one. Volturnus' command ability that gives the +1 attack to 3 separate units used to only be used if he was your general. Okay?
Okay.
And this is the debate you got into. I might want to have a Tidecaster as my general because the Tidecaster as a general allows me to flip the tides and have that great high tide attack in turn 2.
Turn 2 instead.
And we're on smaller boards now.
Yeah.
Turn
so
2
you're gonna
could be
in
critical.
combat, yeah.
So you might want the Tidecaster to flip the tide and go to high tide in turn 2. But Volturnus' great command ability of +1 attack to 3 units could only be used if he was your general.
Right. That's a huge Gloomspite problem too.
Yes.
But yes, I understand it.
It's
I get
which
it.
of these
Yeah.
two ways do you go? They took out Volturnus' requirement to be the general to use his command ability. So now you can have a Tidecaster as a general, Volturnus in the army, flip the tide, in turn 2, Volturnus can use it, and all your 3 units get +1 to attack.
So it's not a nerf.
No, it's not a nerf. This is the
you
opposite.
started this one by saying this is a nerf.
This is a buff.
A buff.
This is a buff. This is a buff. Now, the problem with taking the Tidecaster as the general is that none of the guard, the Ishtan and Morsar guard, are battle line. So you have to waste points now on Thralls and Reavers. So
Well, you say waste points. I mean, it's a completely different build.
it's a completely different build, but if you're going to take Volturnus and bring all those model units in, you're planning on bringing in usually a lot of eels.
Eels, yeah.
So the huge eel swarm with Volturnus, if you want to flip tides, isn't open to you. But you could have targeted eel groups that are going to come in with Volturnus, and he's going to give it to himself. He's
pretty bad
He's-
too.
he's-
Yeah.
He-
Bad,
he's,
good.
He's mean
good,
in
bad.
combat.
Yeah,
He's mean in combat. But that's a big buff, is they took out that general requirement on Volturnus. Now, here's my problem with this is, it doesn't say you use his command ability in the hero phase. You have to go back to the core rules FAQ that says if it doesn't say which phase you use it in, you
Right.
can use it in the hero phase. Why didn't you just say you can use his command ability in the hero
Since
phase?
they rewrote it anyway.
Since they rewrote it elsewhere. Because now some people are just going to see this and say, I'm going to use it in the hero phase, the shooting phase, the charge
movement
phase,
yeah.
and then you add here's another one. You add +1 of the attack's characteristic of melee weapons used by those units until your next hero phase. So it actually will help you all the way through if your opponent gets the next turn. They're still at +1 to attack.
True.
So that's
if
kinda
they're
nice.
still there.
Now let's go with the biggest.
Oh, the most fair change I saw in the whole FAQ is right here for somebody who's not an IDK player but has played against them so many times.
Yes, but it frustrates me that we just bought a second boat for 3 tournaments. You only can use 1 boat now.
Yeah.
You can split it into 2, but you don't get the 2 boats that can be split into 2. You don't get 2 full boats anymore.
Yes, so you can't block off the entire board from your opponent.
Yep. This faction terrain feature consists of 2 scenery pieces. When you set it up, you can set up the 2 scenery pieces touching or put them apart. It's basically the way it
But
works.
they can be garrisoned now.
You can garrison them. And I find it funny. If you set them up as a single, you can garrison it with a unit of up to 5 that can't have mounts.
Oh.
The only things that have 5 or less
heroes
is Soul Scryer, Lotan, the Tidecaster, the Soul Render. That's it, because Reeves and Thralls come in units of 10. They could drop them to 5s, and that would make it cost efficient, and you could garrison them. I wish they would do that. If it's one big unit, you can put units of 10.
Right.
So you put 10 Reavers inside a boat.
With bows, right?
With bows,
because they're gonna,
and if you get within 8 inches, they can have 30 shots. I could see that being a play.
Yeah.
But they took out the ward save.
Yeah, it doesn't
It's
give you
gone.
that anymore.
No more ward save. So really, they're trying to kill more models in this game. They really are. So this is a huge nerf for IDK players, and everyone else in the game is going to love it. That you're not getting your entire table shut off by 2 boats anymore.
I can't.
That's probably.
I was playing DOK at the last few tournaments, and I don't fly. And I couldn't get to the other side of the table because there was always 2 boats in my way.
Yeah, because there was so much IDK at all the tournaments we saw. Let's go to SCE. And this was shockingly not a real major in-depth
Again, because
book.
I think they're getting a new book.
Yeah, they're getting a new book. We're not going to spend a lot of time. If you do play Stormcast, is there anything in here that you would have to know right away? Other than the comet, let's talk about the comet change.
The comet did change.
The comet can no longer be placed within 1 inch of models.
Yes. So no more fitting it right in between everybody, but it's butt up against a bunch of models.
Comet has to be placed more than 1 inch from all other models. And here it is. After this endless spell is set up, roll a dice for each unit within 10 inches of this endless spell. On a 1, that unit suffers 1 mortal wound. On a 2 to 5, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. On a 6, it suffers D6 mortal wounds. That's all the way it was. What's missing? It doesn't do it ever again the entire game.
Right. It does still subtract 1 from casting.
Still will always subtract 1 from casting, but the comet no longer lands, does mortal wound damage, and continues to do it over and over
Unless you
again.
move away from it, right.
You had to run away from the comet. You don't have to anymore.
Yeah.
It'll land if get your spellcasters away from it, because subtract 1 from spells.
Right.
But it'll just sit there. Now, the Stormcast Eternal guy will just cast another endless spell, and that comet's going to sit there.
Yeah.
Don't dispel it.
Yes,
because you dispel it, he's going to drop it on you again.
He's going to do it again.
So just let it sit there, and the comet's over.
Or he has to use one of his spells
he has
to dispel it. Yeah.
Yes. But that's it for Stormcast. Nothing major. Seraphim.
Bonded as opposed to, what was it called before?
They used to have Bound Endless Spell.
Bound
and now they're Bonded. Very similar to OBR. Chameleon Skinks.
Yeah.
Models within 1 inch. Models in this unit. Not even the full unit. Models in this unit that are within 1 inch of a terrain feature have a ward of 4+.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you did that.
So does that mean if only 1 model is in it, I have to roll every damage?
For that 1 model.
But you don't remove models till the end of the turn.
I don't get that.
That's really bad wording. Models in this unit. So how it would play out, because you don't actually remove models until an attack sequence is done.
Right.
And if one of them has a 4+,
I suppose you could roll your 4+ until that one fails. And
I don't think so, because you remove models at the end after everything's done. I think you'd get the 4+ the entire attack. And then when you actually took models off, you'd take them off on the other end and keep them near it. It should just say if the unit's within 1 inch of a terrain feature has a 4+ ward.
Yes.
That's bad wording.
That is, yeah.
That is
confusing.
really bad wording.
But cool in its design, in that it's a chameleon,
is.
So it's, kind of hidden.
A lot about just the spells now are bound. They're defining for the 3.0 a lot of spell aspect in this. And the other why the bond is the exact same as OBR. The model cannot be bound to more than 1 endless spell and cannot attempt to summon endless spells while it is bonded.
And it doesn't go wild if the wizard that's bonded to it dies. It leaves the board. Yeah.
But that's limiting them to just basically 1 endless spell a caster.
Right. I get you.
Now, the Lord of Change's ability as an ability to dispel an endless spell every turn, that's going to be nice.
True.
That he can just do that as an ability and get rid of one. So he's not going to be as limited in only having one out there linked to him.
True. He could switch between.
That's nice. Realm Shaper Engine, I saw a great post on Facebook. That was, everybody's raging today on all of the forums about the FAQ except Seraphim. Because Seraphin's just excited it actually is going to be able to use its terrain feature. Because it was one that you had to place before you got sides. And then it could be garrisoned.
By the opponent,
What happens if you ended up putting it on a side they win the roll-off, and now they got easier to garrison than you got? Now, after territories are determined, you can set up this faction terrain wholly within your territory.
Yes. So at least if you're planning on garrisoning it, you have the option.
You're going to have that option. And if it doesn't fit, this is another one you can remove a terrain feature and put it in its place. So we have it. We've got a Seraphim army. We never painted it because we're like, the thing's useless.
It was difficult to use, so there was no point.
But it is nice now.
No.
It's very nice now. All right, we are down to 2 books that we don't have, so this is going to be quick.
We have Lumineth.
Oh, we have Lumineth. You're right. We just don't know it at all, quite honestly. Page 83, Lightning Reactions. It's basically defining that as strike first and strike last effects. Just taking the terminology to the new book.
Okay.
Defining pile-in to the new pile-in rules. The unit must retreat instead of a normal move. The whole thing I really just got out of this, it's just redefining the terminology to have the same really impact in new 3.0.
Okay.
That if you can retreat, you can't run away. You can just retreat your normal movement. And other than that was all I saw. Lumineth book was really, really small, except setting up the shrine is different also. After territories are determined, you can set up this faction train wholly within your territory.
But we talked about the fact that you cannot remove a piece for this one.
This one, that's why I highlighted it.
It's huge also. So just like the Bone Tithe Nexus and the Realm Shaper, they realize they're so big that sometimes you'll have to remove a piece of terrain to be able to put it in. This one is large also, but they did not give Lumineth
it has to
the
be
option
3 inch
to
from
take
all objectives
them,
and terrain.
Take one off, yeah.
And you can't, so there could be some tables where you might not be able to put that on there.
Right.
That's the reason I highlighted it, because I really don't know how it was set up before. So maybe it's set up the same way. I highlighted it to show that that's different from the other two, and it's a big terrain piece. Last KO, we don't have this book, and we're probably more ignorant about KO than any other. Maybe Slaanesh and KO are the two most armies we know little least about.
Yeah.
So I just subtract 1 from hit rolls under emergency event plates. I'm wondering if that was a new change that related to 3.0.
Right.
There's stuff about coalition units in here. And, other units this is under the Arcanaut Ironclad and the Arcanaut Frigate.
Okay.
Other units in the same battalion that can garrison this unit can be set up as this unit's garrison when the unit is set up. This just defined who could be garrisoned in it to begin the game with the new battalion mentality.
Right, I think so, yes.
That's all it is. And other than that was all there is in KO. So that is it. I know that was probably long. I hope that helped highlight some FAQ changes for you. I know it really did for me going through and reading that.
Yes.
And you didn't read them all, but that might have helped you.
I did not read them. I read the
time.
ones that, of the armies I play or that I frequently play against, but I did not read them all the way
I read them all. So here are some things I'm still confused about that I think still need to be addressed. 1, Rally and Horrors. That is like the number one. What's going on with it? Multiple generals. I put in here, why did Slaanesh get the shaft? Ravagers. The Ravagers in the Slaves of Darkness, where you have a different general every turn.
Right.
How does that apply in where if you kill a general, you win you win points?
Your grand strategy.
Your grand strategy. Yeah. There's some things about multiple generals that definitely are going to have to be more thought out and are going to need to be answered. The Invocation of Cain, is it a prayer? No. That just that opens up so many questions that needs to be addressed.
Could that be clarified, please?
And the zombies with the newly dead, they did not answer directly. Can you zombies go over your maximum size? Now, I don't know who's bringing units of 60 zombies.
Well, yes, and I don't know how you're going to kill more than you actually lost.
Yeah, so
with no save.
It's probably not going to happen enough, but it's still an answer that I think needs to be addressed. Champions. What is the definition of unit champions?
Because the new book,
like
my Soul Blight book, it says champion on all of the units that have a leader for the unit. But older books don't say that. They just might say, your leader is called a something else.
Okay, we've got two last things that are still questions we have, and some of these we're seeing, like one was brought up last night on Facebook. And I thought it was a really good question. And it was the Luminarch's Searing Beam of Light ability. And that is, it's a shot. It's a missile attack.
It's listed under missile weapon.
Yes, has a 30-inch range. And basically what you do is you pick a point on the battlefield, draw that straight line, and everything in between there takes mortal wounds.
Right. So somebody said, can I use that in the Unleash Hell?
Yes. And if you did, are you going 30 inches out and everything taking mortal wounds, the Unleash Hell? Great answer last night on Facebook was, Unleash Hell says that you're targeting the unit that charged.
Yes.
Okay? This ability targets a point on the battlefield.
Not a unit.
Therefore, you can't use this ability. We could be right. We could be wrong. So therefore, that's something I also suggest needs to be added to the FAQ to just clarify that.
Yeah.
And here's the point. If you think something isn't confusing, but you go on Facebook and there's 80 comments and 40
they all
of them
think
differently, by definition, it's confusing enough to be answered.
Right. To need an answer, yep.
And that's can the pink horrors who fled split. That was a comment. That was over a year and they never directly answered it. So don't get so stuck, this is the way I read it, it's right, if other rational people are saying, but it could be a different way.
Yes.
The Luminarch one is one probably most TOs are going to say, you can't use that.
I would assume.
Yeah. But one might. That's something that over time they'll find all those things and they'll be added into the FAQ.
Yeah, sure. This was a huge undertaking.
For them to have that out already before it was issued, that kudos to GW. Absolutely. Great job. My last one is, as I'm making my SOB army, is the Stomper Tribe's ability, if you have a general who's in the Stomper Tribe, of big shouts. And what it did in the old days of 2.0, the old days.
The old days. Back in the old days. Yesterday this came out.
What it did was it took all the universal command abilities and it really made them better. Instead of issuing it to one unit, you issued it as a big shout in a bubble and all your units got to use it. And what it said is, you must use these. You can't use any other command abilities.
Right.
Okay? But now they have all these other command abilities that are not covered by Big Shout that are great. And Big Shouts, if your army is a Stomper Tribe, your general must use the following Big Shout command abilities. They cannot use any other command abilities.
Yes.
Well, when you look through here, you weren't hurt by these Big Shouts.
Right.
Compared to the universal command abilities. They were better. Now you've got all these other great universal command abilities. Do you still mean for the Stomper Tribe general not to be able to use those?
Right. And one reason I think that this is so important is you only have a choice of 3.
Correct.
3 different tribes that you can choose from. And now you took one and made it so outside the parameters of the normal game.
And the other one, with taking the artifacts and rolling a roll in the Triumph, that's not undefined, so you're not doing that. So right now, everybody's going to go with Gatecrusher. So these are just some things that, and I'm sure we'll find more over time. Thank you, GW, for doing your best job.
Oh my gosh.
I think in trying to get these things
really is amazing.
Together. The game looks fantastic. We might do another one of these over the General's Handbook, but we might not because we are painting Frenzy right now, getting ready for tournaments, and we have a lot of them coming up.
Yes, and we do want to get some battle reports out.
And we want to get some battle reports out.
Yes.
So with that, thank you very much for watching, and we hope in the comments section you find anything else that is like this, hey, here's something we didn't catch, please let us know.
Yes.
Please let us know. And we might add it at the beginning of a battle report or something like that to say, hey, we found out a further clarification, and cover that at the beginning of other videos.
Yeah.
And with that, I am Steve.
And I'm Tracy.
And we are the Partners at War.
Keep playing.